to the point of informed consent, it was like, okay, this is true informed consent. I would get an email that's like, hey, it's time for this. Here are some options that you can do for this. Here are several articles to read so you can decide what you want to do. Let's talk about it at the next appointment. And it never, like, there was never any sense of like, here's the information, but here's really what I think you should do. It was like,
Right.
here's the information, make a decision that feels right for you.
Welcome to the Happy Home Birth Podcast, your source for positive natural childbirth stories and your community of support, education, and encouragement in all things home birth and motherhood.
If you had a pretty good experience in the hospital with your first baby, what's the point of changing things up with subsequent births? Hey there, happy home birthers, and welcome to episode 280 of the Happy Home Birth Podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Fusco, and today we are speaking with Kylie, who is living the dream as a stay-at-home mom of 3. She is married to her husband of 10 and a half years, Tim, and they live in Franklin, Tennessee. They are passionate about embracing the adventure of life wherever it takes them and celebrating all things both big and little. Kylie is a self-proclaimed birth junkie and could talk all things birth with you if you would let her, and that's exactly what we did in this episode. So you are going to love the conversation that came from this. Now, I want to go ahead and get in, but I also want to remind you of something. Podcast listeners get a 10% discount by using the coupon code PODCAST for Happy Home Birth Academy. If you are curious about Happy Home Birth Academy and how it helps you prepare for an empowering home birth experience, make sure you listen in to this week's educational tidbit segment. Kind of gives you a little example of the types of things that we talk about inside of HHA, which is a comprehensive childbirth education program for home birth mothers specifically. So check that out, and let's go ahead and get into this week's episode. Please remember that the opinions of my guests may not necessarily reflect my own and vice versa, and this show is not medical advice, it's an educational tool, so continue to take empowered responsibility for your health and your family. Kylie, thank you so much for coming on the Happy Home Birth Podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
Oh man, I'm so excited to have you. It has been really fun just talking to you in these few minutes before we started recording. I know that you have so much amazing insight to give us. So before we jump into your stories, would you mind taking just a moment to introduce yourself and your family to the listeners?
Of course. So I'm Kylie Halperin. I live in Franklin, Tennessee, so just south of Nashville, with my husband who does music full time and our 3 kids, 2 little girls and a little boy. Her name Elliot, she's just turned 5. Parker is about to turn 3, and Wells is our little boy. He is 4 months old.
Oh
So,
my
and I get
goodness.
to be a stay-at-home mom. So spend my days with them.
That's the best. And I love being able to look, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you will see. But as soon as I saw your setup, I was like, "Oh, music is important to this family."
Yeah. And I'm in my husband's office and
I love
yeah.
that. It's so
Mhm.
special to see someone set up and be like, "Oh, I know what's important to you. Like I know what you care about." That's so special. So amazing. Okay, so we are going to talk about your birth experiences. And I know that we're going to focus on this third birth that happened just 4 months ago. But I want to hear, what mindset were you in when you became pregnant for the first time? What were you and your husband considering, and how did that all unfold?
Sure. So all of my family experience was very like conventionally medically minded. My mom had 5 babies, all at the hospital, like mostly with epidurals when she could get them. And so I had always thought, like, when I have a baby, I will get the epidural. If it's there, why would I not? Like, absolutely. And then for whatever reason, like the closer that we got to having a baby, I just started to feel this like pull towards something different. And I think the best that I can like pinpoint it is that I just had a couple friends that had done things differently and had natural births that they had just raved about and absolutely loved the experience of. And so I think that just kind of sent me down that path of like, maybe this is something I want to look into. Yeah. By the time we were getting pregnant, I was like, okay, I think I want to maybe go with a midwife group.
Wow. I think that that's such a good point too, and a reminder for mothers that you sharing about your story to your friends, the beautiful experiences that you have where, you do choose to go unmedicated, you do choose to give birth at home. There are so many women out there who just don't think it's possible. And so when you share your experience, that lights a fire in them where they start thinking, oh, wait,
Mm.
oh, maybe I could do it differently. Because, like you said, Kylie, you just didn't even think about it. It was like, oh, no, of course, I'm going to go to the hospital and have an epidural. Like, duh. So
Mhm.
that's a beautiful little point there.
Yeah, it's been interesting too because I feel like I'm so like enmeshed in the birth world and just love it and consuming so much that I feel like those stories are everywhere and
Mhm.
people like hear that all the time. And so it's been interesting as I talk to different people. Like the other day, I was having a conversation with a girl at a birthday dinner for a friend that I didn't know and was like, I love birth. Like my births have been my favorite experiences in my life. And she was like, what? I've literally never heard anyone say that. I was like,
Right.
"Oh, that makes me so sad."
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
and then yeah, the friend whose birthday dinner it was, I was telling her that, and she was like, "I mean, I know that you're in it and like you are just kind of in that world a little more, but like for most women, that is not the case. Like I don't hear people talking about it in that way." And I'm like, "That's a good reminder."
It is. It is because you're right. We get in these like little groups like,
Mhm.
well, of course. I mean, I hear birth stories every week. Like, of
Yeah.
course, everybody talks about this. No, they don't. So to be able to be that beacon to other people, it's
Mm,
just amazing.
totally. Hopefully it opens doors.
Exactly. Okay, so you had decided we're gonna seek out a midwife practice, correct? Okay.
Correct. So yeah, I had like seen different OBs in town just for like well women visits in the past and had never been very impressed by the two different ones I had gone to. It was just like, okay, I feel like it's very like in, out, like you good? Okay, great. See you next year or see you when you get pregnant. And yeah, it just like I just felt kind of unsettled about that and just did not feel like the care that I knew I would want to have when I was pregnant and having a baby. And so another friend had gotten pregnant, like our due dates were like 3 days apart or something like that. And she had found this midwife group in Nashville that practices with an OB group. And that's who she was using. And so I kind of just was like, all right. And it was her third baby. And so I think I just was like, great, that sounds awesome. So
Sign me up.
yeah. So I ended up going that route. And at this point, like home birth was definitely not on our radar at all. I just knew that I wanted to have an unmedicated birth. And so I knew that midwives would set me up for success in that way the best. So yeah, signed on with this midwife group. It was good. It was like definitely, have nothing negative to say about it, but definitely like a medical practice, like much more medically minded on everything. I would say there wasn't really any like informed consent. It was kind of like, this is what we do at this point. And if I declined things, they'd be like, okay, like they were fine with it, but it was not truly informed consent at any point.
Right. It's like if you came and were like, "Hey, I'm not going to do this," then like, okay, maybe you'd have a conversation, but it's not like they were gonna bring up like, "And you don't have to do it if you don't want to."
Yeah, it's not like, okay, hey, we're gonna do this test, and here are the pros of doing it, or like,
Mhm.
now would be the time to do the test. Here are the pros of doing it. Here are the cons. What do you want to do?
Right,
It's just
not
like
that.
this is what we do now.
Yes.
And even like, oh, it made me so frustrated. They did the Group B test like on my like first urine sample, like at my whatever, like 10-week appointment or something. And I was positive. And so from that point on, it was like, all right, like you're going to need antibiotics. And I was like, well, can I like retest? And they were like, no, sorry, we don't do that.
What?
It made me so mad because I was like, I felt so blindsided by it because I was like, I
Yeah.
had no idea you'd be testing for that.
Mhm.
And there are things I can do to like try and prevent that or, whatever.
For
But I
sure.
had no idea that I even needed to be doing that at this
Right.
point.
Oh my
So
goodness. Oh,
anyway,
wow.
all that to say, it was fine. It was good. There were two different midwives, and they would like flip back and forth at our appointments. Like I'd have one at one appointment, the other at the next, just to have like rapport with each of them. And then whoever was on call would be who attended the birth. And it was at a birth center, is a very loose term. It was basically an extra like wing on the hospital or like floor that's just for natural birth, but it's still like attached to the hospital and everything. But it felt like at least like a more homey vibe. Like it's just a regular bed. It's a big room with a tub. And so that felt like a better option, like felt more settling to me in terms of environment. Felt good about all that. My pregnancy was like very uneventful. I have thankfully really smooth, easy pregnancies, like no nausea, like very relatively comfortable. Saw a chiropractor the whole way through, which I did have SI pain, and it was like really early on, and that's what sent me to the chiropractor the first time. That was probably like, I don't know, maybe 2 months in or something. And then I just kept on going and have been going regularly ever since. And I truly am like, I don't know how people do pregnancy without chiropractic care. Oh, I feel like it makes me so much more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so comfortable, uneventful. And that was in 2020. So my due date was May of 2020.
Oh boy.
So it was just like, then the world shuts down. I was like, okay, what is, and so many questions about like, okay, if I'm sick, what's that going to look like at the hospital? If Tim's sick, what's that going to look like? That was not fun. So I do feel like we really like hunkered down toward the end and tried to like not get out and do too much. We went on tons of walks but just to like lower the risk of there being any issue at the hospital, which was fine and good quality time for us. And I spent a ton of time because of that, just like connecting with the baby and reading and listening to podcasts and preparing and praying. I like specifically remember so often like sitting in the rocking chair in the nursery and just like praying. And so that was a sweet part about it. But then I was not at all mentally prepared to go past my due date, which I think so many first-time moms aren't. And the due date came and went in the middle of the pandemic when we had nothing to do anyway. And we're just like sitting around twiddling our thumbs, like waiting for the baby to come. And Mother's Day came and went. And that was like so sad because I thought I would have a baby in my arms on my first Mother's Day. And so that was so emotional. But ended up going 9 days past my due date, which, as we know, is like perfectly typical for first time moms. I feel like that was such a hard mental game. Like I did not expect. I mean, this is a blessing to be able to say, but I was like, this feels like one of the hardest things I have gone through, like waiting this long. I just was so ready. And yeah, so I went to 9 days. At that point, we were just like trying to distract ourselves as much as possible. And so the day I went into labor, like picked up lunch. We're going to go on kind of a walk hike and pulled into a gas station, go to the bathroom beforehand, and went to the bathroom and was like, interesting. Had bloody show and went to sit and eat in the parking lot before we went on the hike. And I was like, I don't feel good. I like feel kind of crampy and I don't really feel like eating, don't feel like walking a bunch, but really didn't realize that was labor starting. So we decided, we had friends that lived close by. We decided to just go hang out with them in their backyard for a little while instead. Did that. And while we were there, for sure, like I think it was a really good distraction because I was just focused on hanging out with them. But labor was for sure kicking in and I didn't even realize it. And we got in the car to drive home and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm having consistent contractions. Like, let me time these. And sure enough. So got home, like kind of told Tim, was like, I'm going to shower. If you want to shower or anything, go for it. Cause I think we probably will need to leave soon. So yeah, we ended up going in. Also at that point, so they won't admit you to the birth center unless I think you had to be like 4 centimeters or something dilated. And so we were just like praying that would be the case on the way in, especially because it was during COVID. So it's not like we could just hang out at the hospital and walk the halls or wait. It was like, what are we going to do? Go walk around in the parking garage? So got there, got into triage. I was like my husband was laughing at like they were asking me questions like birth date and stuff. And I was giving them totally, I don't even know what I was saying. He was like, you were not answering their questions. But I ended up being 7 centimeters dilated.
Woo!
So yeah, got straight back to a room and labored in the tub for a while. There you can like labor in the tubs but not deliver in them. And so I pretty much stayed in the water as long as I could and then got out and the midwife checked me. And as she checked me, which I'm like, now I kind of wonder, like, was this convenient or an act? I don't know. Or like purposeful? I don't know. But my water broke and pretty quickly after I was pushing and delivered her. The whole labor was 8 hours from like start to delivery. So that was awesome for a first
Yeah,
time.
that's
And
beautiful.
I ended up delivering her on, I thought I maybe wanted to be like squatting on they had like a ladder,
Mhm.
but the midwife thankfully suggested, she was like, I really like hands and knees on the bed, and she put a peanut ball under my arm so I could kind of like roll back and into the contractions, and that ended up working really well for me.
Mm.
Yeah, like short pushing phase, delivered the baby, and just was absolute bliss.
Mm.
Oh, the best.
Wow.
It was so sweet. And we don't find out gender with any of our babies. And so it was so sweet. We had we really truly did not care either way, would have been thrilled either way, but kind of hoped that the first would be a girl. And so it was really sweet to find out that we had our girl. And
Oh,
it was also wild pretty much the whole pregnancy, but for sure at the end, like I just knew she was a girl.
yeah.
Like in my heart, in my gut, especially at the end, anytime I would be praying about the baby, thinking about the baby, it was just a girl in my head. And so I would have been shocked if she came out and was a boy.
Yep.
But it was just wild. I was like, oh yeah, here's my girl that
Yep.
I knew
I
was
knew.
coming.
I knew who you were.
Yeah.
I think that's such a beautiful thing about like connecting with your baby. And you
Mm,
specifically said, Kylie, that you had all of this time to connect. And there's so much to that. There is so much that we know that we don't know that we know. And there's so
mm,
much connection going on. I mean, and it's like science is catching up with all of this. But
mhm.
I had the same experience when I was pregnant with my first. I was just like, it's a girl. It's definitely a girl. Her name's Janie. Like, she's fiery. Like, I just like knew her. I just knew her. And
Mm,
all true, beautiful, amazing things. And I think that leaning into that without the like that need to be right. Like,
mm,
what if she had been a boy? Like, who cares? It's not like being attached to the outcomes, but leaning into that sense and feeling that ability to connect, I think is such a beautiful practice.
mm,
And like really praying over them at the same time, praying those characteristics of like, oh, you are so strong and
mm,
you are confident and you are capable and brave, and all of the different things that just that's a
mm.
practice that I've really deeply enjoyed when it comes to connecting.
That's really cool. I love that. It's
Yeah.
interesting too, as I was like looking back over my journals and just kind of preparing for this too, I was realizing it's been so interesting how each of my pregnancies, but then really like my labors have almost been a peek into what their personalities are
Yeah.
like.
It's true.
It's so
It's so
crazy.
true. It's so true. And
Yeah.
and it's like, doesn't it make sense that like the Lord would provide some type of like preparation for like, hey, like this is how we're gonna prepare for this amazing journey that we're about to go on. That's really just
Mm,
starting. I
mhm.
think that there's so much to that. And it's cool to be able to look back, with that perspective of like, oh, how do I see my child in that birth experience?
Yes.
That's a fun exercise.
And now noticing that, it's like, okay, if I have another one, I'm gonna be really like tuned into what did that labor look like? What are we in for here with this kid?
All through a positive lens.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh man, all the
Oh
little
my goodness.
gifts that will come with it.
Exactly, exactly. So, okay, so I mean, that was a great situation for your
Mm,
first birth, with home birth not being on the table, not even something you were interested in. 8 hours, a somewhat supportive team, like a good location.
mhm.
But did you decide like, all right, this is what we want, this is how we're going to keep going, or did something change after that experience?
Yeah, so with that one, we had, done like, right before the pandemic happened, or, like, hit, we had done an in-person class with a local home birth midwifery group. They do amazing education. It's called Nova, and so we had just done a class for natural childbirth together and just, like, learning different coping techniques and ways that Tim could support me and just all the info. And it was so good and left us feeling like so empowered, and it was just fun. And so after that, I had been like, I would never have a home birth. But if I ever did, I would totally use Nova. Like they're wonderful. And also after that birth experience, I just was, as so many of us are, like a total birth junkie, just like wanted to consume all the stuff. So even when I wasn't pregnant, was listening to the Happy Home Birth podcast every episode and others. And I even actually trained to be a doula like at the beginning of my next pregnancy, but just because I like could not get enough.
Mhm.
But I think in doing that in between, I just something shifted in me where I was like, nope, this time, like that went so beautifully. It was like a great trial run. I think a good like barometer for my husband too to be like, I mean, that was great. Like we could totally do that at home. Everything went beautifully. So that made him feel good about it too. But yeah, but right before we got pregnant with our second, it was like, this time I really want to be at home. And thankfully he was on board and great with that. And so as soon as we got pregnant with our second, I called Nova. And the one like downside to that was going to be that they are like in a totally different part of town, like probably 45 minutes away from us. So I was like, I don't love that we'll have to drive all the way there and back for appointments, and especially with a toddler in tow. And but it was like totally the Lord's hand in it that they had just brought on a midwife who had been independent and had just joined their team and officed out of a town like just south of us. So she was like 20 minutes away instead of
Oh, wow.
45 minutes away. So I got on a call with her and just talked to her. Her name's Tanya Green, and voiced to her just my desires and my hopes. And just one of the things, too, that was really important to me this time was that, especially being in my home and in my space, I really wanted someone who was also a believer and on the same page with us faith wise, and voiced that to her. And she was like, I mean, rightly so. Like, absolutely, that makes so much sense. And I don't know, just talking to her, I like immediately was felt at ease and felt like this was right connection and right person for us. And so started care with her, and it was just night and day. Like even going from midwifery with my first in that practice to home birth midwifery, just like not all midwives practice the same. And it was incredible. Just like a full, I think our appointments before were like maybe 30 minutes long, and it just still felt like very like do the things they need to do, chat a little bit, but no like real personal connection. And I feel like I knew nothing about those midwives personally. And we, had hour-long appointments, and she like loved on my oldest, and she got to be such a part of those apartment appointments, like using the Doppler and helping with all the things. And she had animals at her house. And so we'd always get to visit the animals. And I just feel like I got to know her, and she became such a dear friend. And so it was just incredible. And to the point of informed consent, it was like, okay, this is true informed consent. Like before any appointment where there would be the, gestational diabetes test is like, it's about time for that, or any of the other kind of things coming along. It's like, okay, here I would get an email that's like, hey, it's time for this. Here are some options that you can do for this. Here are several articles to read so you can decide what you want to do. Let's talk about it at the next appointment. And it never, like, there was never any sense of like, here's the information, but here's really what I think you should do. It was like,
Right.
here's the information, make a decision that feels right for you. And
Mhm.
I will be with you and support you in that. And gosh, that just is like, oh, just is so right.
Mhm.
And even as I was looking back through my journals of that pregnancy, I wrote so many times, like, I am just so grateful for the care that I have this time. And it just feels so right. And
Wow.
I do think it just went from like having this sense with the first of like, this is good, but just not quite what I want in my heart and in my gut. Like, I feel like there's just something off that's
Mm.
not exactly what my heart is longing for and desiring.
It's like there's more. Like there's more
Yes.
here for me that I could just access if I just knew what it was.
Yes, but I like didn't even really know how to pinpoint that.
Mhm.
And so then like being in this care was like, oh, this was it. Like this is what my heart has been longing for. Like, oh, I just feel so at ease, at peace. Like this is what the Lord had for me. And I'm so thankful that I like followed my intuition in that and like followed my gut and what I truly believe is just like the Holy Spirit's voice in the midst of that. Being like, no, this is it. This is what you were looking for and hoping for. And oh yeah. So it was just incredible night and day. That pregnancy was very similar, like yeah, uneventful, comfortable. I in terms of gender, like kind of thought that it was a girl, but I also wasn't sure this time if that was influenced by the fact that I already had a girl or if that was true, my true intuition. But my daughter the whole time was saying that it was a sister. It's so interesting. So I was like, okay. And sure enough, it was. But yeah, her birth was fast and furious and fits her personality beautifully. She is a wild, wild second child, keeps us on our toes.
You gotta have one. Everyone's gotta have one. Like
Yes, it's
it's like
very
the
refining.
vitality. Yes, and the vitality of the family. It's like you just bring so much to this.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. But yeah, with hers, it was just like it was a 4-hour labor from start to finish. We like got Elliot to bed. My mom was planning to come in to be with Elliot, and they live in Knoxville, so we were just gonna like call her as soon as we knew something was happening. I woke up that morning and had bloody show, and since that had been like my first sign and labor had kicked in like within 2 hours the last time, we were kind of like, okay, it's gonna be go time. My mom happened to be in Kansas City instead of Knoxville at that point because I was a week early.
Oh my
This was like
gracious.
at 39, or it was, I think, 38 and 6. So we were like, okay, well, so I called her and we got her on a last minute flight.
Whoa. Okay. You went from like what, 41 and 2
Yes, from yeah, yep.
to 38 and
Which is so
6.
interesting because it was one of the things I didn't even really remember this, but as I was looking back through my journals, I had prayed multiple times that this baby would come earlier. And
Laura's like, all right.
yeah, I got it.
Got you booked.
So 39 weeks, a whole week early than you're even
Right.
maybe expecting.
Like 2 weeks earlier than your previous.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
is so wild.
And I also just truly though, like I had been praying for that, but I also just had this sense that it was gonna happen.
Mm.
My brother got married when I was, I think, 37 weeks in Knoxville, and so we, like, went for that, came back, and that whole time, like, right around then, I was just thinking, like, "This baby's coming soon." And it wasn't like I feel heavy, like, I feel so done. It was just I just, like, had that intuition that, like, it's gonna come earlier. So, yeah, I had bloody show that morning. My husband was at Bible study, so I, like, let him know. I was like, "Nothing's really happening yet, so don't cancel anything necessarily." He had to go, like, track a vocal with a producer he works with, and so he went and did that and came home at noon, and I was just, like, trying to find that balance and, like, getting prepped, but also spending, like, intentional slow time with my oldest and really trying to soak that up, but, like, went all day with nothing. Nothing happened, and so I was like, "Okay." My mom thankfully got in at we got her on a flight that day, and she got in at 8. A friend picked her up from the airport and dropped her off, and still nothing was happening. We had, like, put Elliot to bed and had a sweet little time with just her kinda the last time. Hung out and talked to my mom for a little while, and then I was like, "Alright, well, I mean, I feel like this is going to be happening sooner than later at this point, so I'm just gonna go to bed," and went back to get in bed at, like, probably 10 or 10:30, and as I was getting ready for bed, I was like, "I think I'm having contractions." I was like, "I'm gonna get in the bath and just, like, pay attention, tune in," and sure enough, so I called Tanya at, like, 11:45, I think, and at that point too, I was like, "I don't wanna be the one that's, like" 'cause I'm gonna be waking her up. It's 11:45. Gonna be waking her up. I don't wanna be calling her way too early and waking her up, but I also don't wanna be the person who's calling like, "Hey, the baby's coming," and you're not here.
Hey, the
Um,
head's out.
yeah, so I was like, "I'm just gonna call her and, like, put the ball in her court." So I did, and she was like, "Alright, just get in bed, if it's truly labor, it's not gonna slow down." And so I did lay down, and it just, like, ramped up. I, like, could not lay down, and so got up, went to the bathroom, and I feel like one of the things that I do really well in labor is just, like, really tune into my body and listen to my body, and I think that kind of touches on that like intuition and just being in touch with yourself and just like inviting the Holy Spirit into that. And when you're in labor, just being able to listen to your body and like, what do I need to do to be comfortable, to like work through this? So just like finding all these different positions that felt right and felt productive. And so I was doing that in the bathroom, and I think Tim noticed and came in and watched me for a few minutes and was like, should I call Tanya? It's like, I think so. Yeah. So she got here and she was bringing the tub with her. And so, she got here at like, I think right around midnight. Or no, it was probably like 12:45 or 1. It was an hour or so later. And I really wanted to be in the water. And even as I was laboring while I was waiting for her to get here and they were getting set up, I just filled our bathtub. We just have like a soaker tub, and filled that and was able to get in and just like have my knees in the water and like be on my knees leaning over the side. And even just that like felt so relaxing and so much better to me. So yeah, she and her assistant and my photographer all got there, and they set to work getting the tub set up, and it was like picking up fast. I mean, I was in the bathtub and was like, I'm pushing and like my body's pushing. I'm not trying to, but it's happening. And Tanya was just like, okay, yeah, just like keep letting your body do what it's supposed to do. And they asked me at one point, they were like, do you really want to be in the pool? I was like, I really do. And they're like, okay. And so at that point, they like went to work getting it filled up. They were hauling tubs of water, and we had like a new trash can back there to use, and Tim was filling that up in the bathtub to dump into the pool. So they got it to the minimum line. I got in between contractions and had like 3 contractions, and she was born. And I had really wanted to, well, it was like one of the things I had prayed for, is to be able to catch her. But once I got in, it was like my body was just like, nope, you need to be I was like on my knees leaning over the side, and I needed to like hold on and kind of push against Tim, because my second wish too was like, okay, if I can't, I want Tim to be able to catch her. But I was like, nope, I need you right here. So it was like, just obey what your body's telling you to do. There's no other option.
That's so funny, because that is the exact scenario that happened with my first baby, where it was
Really.
like, well, I didn't even think about myself catching her at that point. It was, I wanted Thomas to catch her, but same thing. I mean, fetal ejection reflex was so insane. And I remember being leaned over the birth pool, like holding my husband's hands and body like as hard as I could. And the midwife was like, Thomas, do you want to come catch the baby? And I just was like, no, like, you cannot move.
Yeah, do not leave. Yes. Yeah, so that was like kind of a bummer, but it was also fine. I mean, Tanya caught her, and I just like flipped over onto my back, and she put her on my chest, and it was fun. It was funny. Tim immediately was like, is it a boy or a girl? Is it a boy or a girl? I was like, give me a second to catch my breath. Like, and then we will look. But he was like dying to know. And so we got to see that it was a little girl, and it was crazy too. We had been like talking about, praying about. Elliot had just like loved being a part of my midwife visits and the pregnancy. She like loves watching the weekly update videos with me, and that was so sweet. And so I was kind of wanting her to be there, but Tim was feeling like, I don't know, like she was only 2, and he's like, I feel like it'll be more of a distraction, and I want to be able to be fully present and focused with you, and I feel like that will pull my attention away. And so that's kind of where we had landed on being. And in that, like, one of the things we were praying for is like just timing wise, like, all right, Lord, orchestrate the perfect timing. I don't even know what that timing looks like. Like, I can't even think of what to ask for specifically, but we trust you to orchestrate the perfect timing. So it was beautiful that it happened in the middle of the night, like right after we had put her to bed. But it was also crazy. She never woke up in the middle of the night, and woke up 8 minutes after Parker was born.
You're
And
kidding.
it was crazy. So my mom was like out in the family room waiting, and she like came and knocked on the door, and she was like, Elliot is knocking on her door. Like, do you want me to bring her back? We're like, yeah. So she got to come back like 8 minutes after her sister was born and meet her. And oh, it was so sweet. And just like such a gift to have my photographer there too, to be able to capture that. And yeah, it's like
Oh
some of
my
my
gosh.
like greatest treasures, those
Like,
pictures.
yeah, orchestrate the timing, Lord. Like,
Hmm.
bam.
Yeah.
That is
It was like, she literally never does this and just happened to at this time. So
so
wild.
sweet. Wow.
Yeah. So that was really, really cool. Yeah, and I feel like this time too, I was better prepared for postpartum, which was
Mm.
good
Mhm.
because the first time I had like done all the birth research and it was not really prepared postpartum to like take care of myself well. And
Mhm.
I was fine. Like I didn't have any major issues, thankfully, but this time I just like had more knowledge and so rested better, which was
Good.
good.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
man. Okay, so you have switched at this point. You've gone from midwives in the hospital, now it's a midwife group at home. What what was the next decision? Because we've got this third baby that's very new, 4 months
Mhm.
old. What was your when you became pregnant with this baby, what was that like?
Yeah. So I just like could not wait after that experience. Could not after that I was like, oh my goodness, I would have 100. I don't want to have
Mhm.
100 babies, but I would have 100 home births. Like,
Mhm.
oh, it's just like the greatest ever. So addicting. And I couldn't wait to get to do another pregnancy and birth with Tanya too. And so when we got pregnant with our third, I immediately called her and made sure that I could get on her schedule and locked her in. And I mean, Kara looked very similar and wonderful and so sweet to like already have the rapport and get to bring both girls along for all the appointments and like that much sweeter to have like this baby that she helped deliver and was along for like now along at appointments. And it's funny, Parker has this like wild incredible curly hair
Mhm.
and so does Tanya. So she's like, she got my curls
Oh, I
because
love
we don't
it.
have girls, so we're like we don't really know where they came from. Tanya's
Your
like, they came from
Tanya's.
me.
That's
I'm
so
like, all right,
sweet.
we'll say that. But yeah, I mean, this pregnancy was like, I kept saying that it felt the same, but I think the people around me knew me well. Like my husband and my best friends were like, huh, okay, if you say so. Because there were definitely things that were, I was just like a little less comfortable. I had SPD pain in the midst of it, probably like around 22 weeks or so, which I'd never experienced before. And was not fun, but it was wild what ended up I like once I pinpointed what it was, went and got a prenatal massage with this incredible prenatal massage therapist here in town, and I was telling her about it, and she was like, "All right, let me like try this thing." And she's also a doula and trained to be a midwife for a little while, but didn't go down that route. So she like just has this wealth of knowledge and did this thing where she like had me press against her hands with my knees.
Mhm.
After that, never felt it again. It was
Wow.
wild. I was like, thank you, Lord,
Yes.
for those healing hands. It was amazing. But had that and then just like had some other discomfort things throughout and just overall was less comfortable. I'm pretty sure I gained more weight. I don't really remember what I gained with any of them, but yeah, it just like felt bigger and yeah. So it was different even though it didn't necessarily feel acutely different to me in the grand scheme of things, I guess. But overall, yeah, so positive and such amazing care. This time, like in terms of intuition on the gender, it was really interesting. Right when we found out we were pregnant, I felt like I was noticing, like, I remember specifically at church one Sunday, just like looking around and just was like drawn to all of these mother son relationships and was like, huh, I, I wonder if this is a boy.
Mm.
And just like had this very strong sense of that. And like, yeah, just felt my attention so drawn to that. And then it kind of fizzled out. And I feel like through the most of my pregnancy, I didn't have this strong intuition on gender. Like people kept asking, I was like, I really don't know. And then in the last month or so, I was like, it's a boy. Like I know it's a boy. I feel so strongly that it's a boy. And again, my oldest daughter from the get go said it was a brother.
Mm.
So it's so interesting how I feel like sometimes they kind of get
Yeah,
that.
she just knows.
Yeah,
Just
she
ask
does.
her.
And she's so proud of it now, too.
I'm
She's like,
sure.
I always guess right.
I'm 2 for 2. It's
Yeah,
not guessing when
exactly.
I'm always right.
Yes. One of the things that was different with this whole labor experience too was, well, first of all too, I feel like with the last after the first, I'm so thankful that we like did our education before the first because I feel like it just set us up so well right off the bat and then gave us that solid base going into the next births because it would have been so much harder to like get that in, whether it's just because of childcare or whatever. Like you would really have to prioritize doing that with
Mhm.
subsequent kids. So I'm so thankful we had done that, and I'm so thankful I had done so much research and reading and stuff before that one because I just feel like I have had so much less time and space to do that with
What?
subsequent pregnancies.
With
Like,
adding children, you've had
I
less
know,
time?
right? It's hard to believe. Because toward the end of this one, I just was like, man, I feel like I have done nothing to prepare almost. Like, I have prayed about it during my quiet times. And thankfully, I was in a really solid season of like having really consistent quiet times. I feel like I go in waves of that. And so that was a really good, sweet gift of like, okay, you haven't necessarily prepped specifically for prayer or for, for birth, but like you have been prepping through just like being with me. And really, that's probably the best prep you can do.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was a gift. But this time I had about 3 weeks of prodromal labor, which I had never experienced before. Like, I don't know that I had even really felt Braxton Hicks in the previous two. So this like really threw me for a loop. And
Well,
I
let's
think
make
we
up for
all
lost time there.
exactly. I think we all, like my midwife, just all of us kind of expected that this baby would come on the earlier side. But also with the caveat the whole time we kept saying, like, third baby is a wild card. Who knows how it's going to go, like when it's going to go. We'll see. But I had an appointment with Tanya at like 38 and 2. And it was just kind of one of those where I was like, okay, we're literally in the any days. And I came back from that appointment feeling so anxious. Like, I do not feel ready. Like, if it is any day, like if it were to happen today, I do not feel prepared, like practically or mentally. Like, it just made me feel so stressed out thinking about the fact that it could happen any day. So I feel like that was a really good gut check too. I'm like, okay, I need to get to that place where I'm like at peace with it happening at any moment. And of course, the next day I was just like exhausted and crampy all day and got the kids to bed. And fun fact, we watch Jeopardy every night. We're like little old people. That's like our nightly ritual.
We love
So
it.
we're like sitting on the couch watching Jeopardy. And it's like, I am like having pretty consistent contractions, and started just like paying attention and like kind of timing them, and told Tim, I was like, I'm going to go to bed just in case, and we'll see what happens. And they were like 7 minutes apart, but I went to bed and nothing happened. But because that was happening and my parents were again in Kansas City instead of Knoxville, my like extended family's there. So they were with my grandparents, but we had told them and they like immediately, they couldn't get a flight. And so they booked a car and drove through the night to get here, which is incredible and so selfless. But then it was like, absolutely nothing happened. They hung for a couple days and we were like, all right, it does not seem like anything's happening. So they went back to Knoxville, and it just was like, okay, well, we'll see. Here we go. I guess this is the start of prodromal labor. And so I had another appointment at 39 weeks, and it was I think it was like a Thursday, and we were going into the weekend. And Tanya, I guess while I was in the bathroom, told Tim, like, I think we might be having a baby this weekend. And I don't know why like, I'd never had cervical checks. Like, I think she just kind of maybe sensed that or whatever. And so we just kind of all weekend were like hunkered down, just hanging out at home, like made sure everything was kind of prepped and ready to go, and just waiting for like, all right, any minute, maybe it'll happen. And nothing happened. So it just was like this. By the end of the weekend, we were so stir crazy. It was January too, so it was like cold and dreary. We were like having snow on and off. So we were anxious to get out and like just be distracted and do some stuff. My mom, in between my second and this baby, had also started a new career. Why not in your late 50s as a flight attendant? And so her schedule's a lot less like flexible and available to just get here. And so she had taken vacation starting at like 39 weeks, I think, just to be able to be around and available, because we were thinking like, there's no way to know when it's going to happen. But hopefully if you take it it like these days, the baby will come during that or will have just come, or I don't know, we'll see. But of course there was no baby. So she decided to just come into town, and one of her best friends lives in town, so she stayed with her, and we just tried to take advantage of that time and like went on a fun date and tried to spend good one-on-one time with our girls, and was just like the whole time just praying over and over, like, okay, Lord, like just give me peace in the waiting, because it was such a mental game at that point. Like, I fully trust your timing, I really do, but like, please give me peace in the waiting, and like help me to not just feel so antsy and so ready. And because I was definitely feeling that way at that point. We had like a big snow coming in too. We get like maybe one big snow a year around here, and we had one coming in over the weekend. And so I was like, oh, it would be so sweet to just have a baby in my arms to cuddle on those snow days. So I prayed one last time. I was like, all right, Lord, I'm asking one last time for a snow day baby to cuddle over the weekend. And then I'm releasing it to you. And I like trust that whatever you've got is right. You already know how it's going to go. Yeah, left it at that. And then just was like, I'm just, you know what? And nothing happened. And so I was like, I'm just going to enjoy the distraction of the snow day. Like, got outside, went sledding. I sled this baby right out.
Yep, as you will,
Yeah.
full term.
And just like was trying to enjoy the distraction of it and like filling up a few days with some fun. And then at 40 and 5, I woke up that morning and had bloody show again, but this time it was really different than it had been the last two times, and it was like really bright and thin. And so that kind of freaked me out. I was like, this might be bloody show, but this is not what I'm used to seeing. And so I called Tanya, and she thankfully was like so chill about it, like so calm and reassuring. I was like, let's just like keep an eye on it, like pay attention to baby's movement and keep me posted. And thankfully it like kind of, the bleeding chilled out and baby was still moving just as much as ever. And so I had a lot of peace about that. But she was like, I have a feeling that with all this prodromal labor you've been having, you're just like, you've been walking around dilated for a while and you're just getting really thin. And that's what that is. And that gave us peace. But it also was like, okay, in the past, I've had bloody show the day I go into labor. So is it coming? And it was not. Still several days before he decided to join us. But
wow.
I went to the chiropractor the next day and it was just like, all right, give me everything you got.
Give me the works. Give me the works.
So they hit like all of the hormonal spots, like just did it all. And I like left having consistent contractions that afternoon, and all through the night was having light contractions, but like pretty consistent, and like to the point where I wasn't sleeping very well just because I was like paying attention and like, okay, is this it? And woke up the next morning and Parker had a fever. I was like, and was just pitiful. So my girls were back in Mother's Day out at that point, and it also was just like so ironic because we had been so careful like the last month with it being January to just like not do anything that we didn't need to do, where like not take them to the gymnastics gym to play where there's germs everywhere, just kind of things like that. And then she's like back at Mother's Day out for one day and comes down with a fever when I'm 40 and 6. So somewhere around there, very overdue. So yeah, we just like spent that whole day cuddling, and she was just Velcro to me, and it ended up being really sweet. She is so very attached to me, like such a mama's girl, that we knew that the transition was going to be really hard for her. And so it was like this sweet gift from the Lord in a way that was like, here are 2 days for you to just like be fully tuned in with her and loving on her right before things are about to change drastically for her and for me. So yeah, hung out with her all day. I had an appointment with Tanya the next day, and with that happening too, I was kind of like the contractions slowed down that day when she had woken up with a fever. I was like, you know what? My body and brain and the Lord knows, like, it's not going to happen. When she is needing me this much, there is no way I could be in labor at this point and also be giving her what she needs. So it's not happening anytime soon. And I felt so at peace with that. I was like, that is fine with me. And I know it's going to happen eventually. And I can just be here for her in the meantime.
I think
Yeah,
it will.
I'm pretty sure. So I had an appointment with Tanya the next day. We kind of all, laughed coming in, like, still here, still pregnant. How is this possible? 41 weeks. And all kind of agreed, like, yeah, it probably is not happening anytime soon with the way that Parker is. So we'll see. We like kind of made plans for, I wasn't sure what it would look like. Like, if I go to 42 weeks, does that mean an instant transfer? Like, what does it mean? So we kind of talked about that plan, and they were so flexible and like not worried about it that it put me at such ease, because I don't know, I was so afraid of getting up to that 42 and being like, okay, I need to do everything I can to make this happen, when we're not in control of that. And I really just did not want to get to that point. So just knowing that they weren't overly worried about it, and also probably at that point she was like, you're not going to 42 weeks, but that just put me so at ease. But we left there and went to the doctor for Parker, and she had the flu. We're like, of course. So, it was like good to know and be aware of and try and keep everyone else away from her
Great
germs.
to know.
But yeah, after I've been cuddling her for a day straight, she's been breathing all over me. But thankfully that afternoon her fever broke and she was like starting to feel back to herself. We did bedtime with the girls, and Tim had made this yummy dinner on the Blackstone. I like shoveled it down because Parker was wanting to get in the bath before bed. Got them in bed, and I was like, oh man, I feel so nauseous, and was just thinking I ate way too fast. And it was like Asian food too. So, which ironically, I didn't even realize this until I was looking back at my note or my like journals and stuff. And I was like, every night that I've gone into labor, I've had Asian for dinner.
You're kidding.
I guess that's the key.
You're going to get real sick of Asian food with your next baby.
Seriously. But yeah, I was just thinking I ate too fast and just did not feel good. Went in the bathroom and like over the course of 15 minutes, just like cleared my system basically, out both ends. And with both of my previous labors, I had like, that was kind of part of the process leading up. Like things were just clearing out. And so I knew that, but also just, I think at this point had so much, as it goes with prodromal labor, you're like, all right, this isn't it. Like it keeps happening, but not, nothing more is happening. So this isn't it either.
It's anything but labor.
Exactly. And so that's kind of what I was thinking. And then after a few minutes, I was like, you know what? I think every time I'm getting nauseous, it is when I'm having a contraction. I think I'm having contractions. And sure enough was. So I called Tanya at like 9:15, and she was like, are we having a baby? I was like, I think so. And told her what was going on. She was like, okay, just maybe like monitor it for the next 30 minutes or so and call me back and let me know what's happening. And I went and sat on the couch, told him, I was like, okay, this is just like, honestly feels laughable at this point after we find out Parker has the flu this morning and after all this time, but I'm pretty sure I'm in labor. And so monitored it, called her back after 30 minutes or so. And she's like, okay, do you want us to come? And we just, because Parker's had gone so quickly, thankfully this time we already had the tub at our house so that we wouldn't have to be stressed about that. But we just were kind of expecting it to go from like 0 to 100. And so I was like, yeah, I think I want you to come, because I just didn't know how quickly it would kick in. And so and they were already like close together and, a minute long and very manageable still, but they were, consistent. And so I called the photographer too. They all got here at like 10:30. And Tim, in the meantime, was like getting the tub blown up. I just asked him to go ahead and fill it because the last 2 times I had just like wanted to be in the water the whole time I was laboring. And so I was like, I think I'm just going to want to get in. My mom changed the bed, got that all ready, and they all got here, and it was like still very active labor and like very consistent, but it still was very manageable. Like I was walking around and like talking with them, visiting, and then, would pause and have a contraction, and but just like felt so manageable. Did that for a while and started for like a couple hours in. I think I was like, I mean, is anything going to pick up? Did I like call them too early? Are we going to be sitting around for hours waiting for things to pick up? And started to kind of feel discouraged in that and realized like, okay, I need to get in the zone. I had been kind of laboring on the ball and realized I need more gravity working with me. And so got up, and my photographer is also a doula and had a rebozo with her. And so we like put that over the door, and I used that to lean into some contractions, and really like it was one of those where I was like, okay, this is not comfortable. It's kind of like a toilet contraction where you're like, this is not fun, but I know that it's productive, and like that's what I know that I need right now. And so thankfully, I think too, I was just starting to feel a little bit like a watched pot. Like everybody was there. It was Tanya, and she had 2 assistants, like midwives in training that were with her, and the photographer, and my husband. And yeah, I think after a while it just was like, okay, it feels like everybody's just waiting for something to happen here. And I am too, but like, yeah, I was feeling that pressure. And I think they thankfully picked up on that, and they all went and sat in the living room for a little while and would just kind of pop in every once in a while and listen to baby and then leave me alone again. And so at that point, yeah, I like put my headphones in. I love the Christian hypnobirthing tracks. I've loved those with, I think, all 3 of my pregnancies, at least the last 2. But like got those in, and just I love just like having the scripture like read over me and just like getting in the zone. And so did that and just like fully focused in and blocked everything else out, had some more intense contractions. And that was maybe only like 30 or 45 minutes. And was like, okay, I'm ready to get in the tub. And it was interesting, like through that whole time, I really hadn't wanted to be in the water, even though it was like there full and ready for me. I just did not feel the need for it this time, and like just did not feel right. And so just went with that and got in and had a few contractions that was like, okay. And I had told, so this time we wanted Elliot to be there, and she had like really voiced that she wanted to be there when the baby came. And it was again in the middle of the night. And so I had told Tanya, I was like, can you help us like figure out, like, I don't want her to be here that too long. I don't want her to get bored. I don't want it to be a distraction to me, but I want her to be here like definitely at the end. And so can you help us kind of feel out when might be the right time for that? And so I got in the tub, had a few solid contractions, and she was like, should we go get Elliot? Like, I think so. So Tim went and got her and brought her in, and it was just so sweet. She was so excited, and we got to like hold hands and talk for a little bit in between contractions, and then it really just kicked in. And truly, like up to that point, it had felt so manageable. Even like when it had picked up and intensified, it was like, okay, they're intense for a second, and I'm fine. Like I wouldn't necessarily say that I've had pain-free births, but I really don't feel like any of them have been. I have never gotten to the point of like, I cannot do this anymore, which is such a gift. And I think also so much a mentality that you go in with and that you prepare for.
Wow.
But this time, so I like got there, was in the tub, talked to Elliot for a little bit, and then it was like, okay, like had a few that felt very, like I could feel the baby moving down in the birth canal, had a contraction, my water broke, had a little bit of a break, had a contraction. I could feel the baby crowning and got to reach down. This time too was really cool. I had prayed again to be able to catch the baby. And this time I was more like on my knees, kind of in a squatting position in the tub instead of having to lean over. And so I told them, I was like, okay, I feel like I can stay in this position, and I do really want to catch the baby. So felt the baby crowning and reached down and could feel its head, which I had never gotten to do that before too. And that was just so cool and sweet. And I think really helped me and motivated me in those because probably the last 2 or 3 contractions, I did hit that point where I was like, oh man, I am so glad that we are near the end, because it was just like no breaks. It was just intense. And I was really trying to just like surrender and let my body do it and not insert myself in any of it. But I remember like holding his head and just saying like, okay, baby, like just trying to talk to him, like, here we go. It's happening. and had another contraction, and his head and his little nuchal arm came out, which my first also had a nuchal arm, and another contraction, and the rest of his body came out, and got to catch him and pull him up and sat back and snuggled him. He had a nuchal cord also, so we just like pulled that off.
It's just very nuchal.
He was like, here I come with all the things. And then it was crazy too. He ended up having a true knot in his cord too.
Word. Well,
just so cool.
Yeah. He was really busy inside.
Yes, he was. He had been breech at like 30 weeks or somewhere around there too. So I think he was doing a lot of flipping around in there and tying that knot. Yeah. So it was also sweet then too to get to check gender, and Tim was just like so excited. I mean, truly, he was like, I would have been so happy to have another girl, but I never voiced it, but I did really like hope and long for a boy. And so that was just such a sweet gift. And he took him a minute to really be lively or whatever. And so Tanya just was like, okay, talk to your baby, and just talk to him for a second. And he made some noise, and within probably like 10 minutes was rooting around ready to nurse, and nursed for like 2 hours straight. Just was loving it. But I love too, like one of my favorite things about being in the water, and especially with Parker, like having just barely gotten in the water before she was born, like it was so worth it to me because one, I feel like it does really help with like stretching and just like, yeah, the damage that can be done down there. Like I haven't torn once in my births, which is such a gift.
With
And
nuchal hands. That's
isn't
amazing.
that wild? I know, especially the first one when I wasn't in the water.
Jeez.
So I feel like it's aided so much in that. And then also just getting to afterwards, just like sit there in the warm water with your baby, like deliver the placenta in the water. I'm like, that's worth it. Even if you can barely get in, like if you want that, just to be able to barely get in and then just enjoy that time afterwards. And it's just so relaxing and so sweet. And then there's nothing like stepping right out, walking 5 steps to your bed and getting to
flopping
just
down,
snuggle in bed with your baby and your husband. And it was sweet to have Elliot there. She had her little camera that she had gotten for Christmas and was taking pictures of everything. Being a little mini photographer. And it was, oh man, just like absolute pure bliss as it is, you know.
Oh my goodness. And so you're 4 months postpartum now. How is it with 3?
Good. I do. If shockingly, I feel like this time too, like I have done the best postpartum. Like I did the best in terms of resting postpartum, which feels very backwards when I have 2 other kids to keep up with in theory too. But I just was so intentional this time about like, okay, I am following the 5-5-5 rule at the least. And so I truly like told my kids, thankfully my mom was able to be here to help, and Tim was great about helping too. But I was like, I am only gonna, like, mommy is not, I'm staying in my bed for 5 days, going potty, but that's it. Like I'm staying in my bed. And then truly was like around the bed for 5 days, and then just tried to hang around the house and couch and stuff the next 5. And I feel like that served me so well. And then also just not like rushing back into exercise. I mean, with my first, we were like going on a walk when I was 5 days postpartum because I felt good. Like I felt fine. And then that evening was like, oh man, like I'm feeling that. A lot of blood rushing. So I feel like I set myself up well in that way. And just like having a meal train, that is one of those things that when I talk to people that are like, I don't know if we want to do that, I'm like, do it. Because you're going to have people ask you, if you have one anyway, like people want to do that for you. And I just didn't even realize what a gift that would be to just like not have to think about what's for dinner, not have to keep myself from being on my feet in the kitchen. Yeah, I mean, it is such a gift. That's one of my favorite ways to love on people, bringing food. But yeah, that was such a gift and aided my rest and recovery so much too. And then just our community, like being able to help. Yeah. And I feel like the transition from 1 to 2 was really challenging for us. And the transition from 2 to 3 felt similar, but I think subsided a little quicklier, or little quicklier,
I
more
like that
quickly.
No, I had the exact same. It was 1 to 2 that was like just so intense for us. And then 0 to 1, like I felt great about that. 2 to 3, like it really didn't feel that difficult because the older two had each other. And so,
Exactly.
there's all of that. But yeah, that 1 to 2 for me, and I know it's different for everybody, but that's the one where I am so glad that I had already realized, okay, we did not do postpartum right the first time.
Mhm.
We've
Mhm.
got to do postpartum right this time. And I needed every ounce of that rest
Mhm.
possible just to get back and to get into things.
Mhm.
So I love that you've had that experience as well in terms of resting and that making such a massive difference. And when you bring up the meal train, honestly, sometimes I'm like, could somebody do a meal train for me now? Like,
You
I
seriously?
don't have anything going on, but I would love a meal train.
Yeah, what mom does not appreciate that, not having to think about a meal every once in a
It's
while?
wild. It's wild to think about how much time and energy food and meals
Yes.
consumes in my brain. Like, it's just like, wow, this is a
There are
lot.
constantly people in my house needing to eat.
I
It's bizarre.
know. It keeps happening.
I don't get it.
Oh my
But yeah,
goodness.
it is
Kylie,
such a gift.
gosh. Well, okay, so like as we kind of pack all of this back up, I'm curious to hear, when you look at your experience, what do you take from it? What is it that you would tell the mom listening to this who is preparing for her first birth or second or third? What do you want to share with them?
I feel like some of, like, the most key things for me have been just, like, leaning into my intuition, which I truly believe, like, as a believer in Jesus, that that is the Holy Spirit speaking to us, and so just, like, being in touch with that and trusting it, because I do feel like you get to experience that in pregnancy, much like I think too in pregnancy we learn to surrender,
Mhm.
that, like, we are not in control. There's so little that we really are in control of, and in the same way, like, you get to experience this whole new intuition, and so just leaning into that, because I think then it ends up serving you so well in motherhood in
Mm,
so many ways. And so it'll serve you so well to be in touch and be listening and trusting yourself through pregnancy and labor, but then I think because you've practiced that, it becomes more and more natural in motherhood too, and just, like, and I don't know, there's so many instances where it's like, my kid's sick. What do I need to do here? And you just you just know, or
mhm,
what do we do for school for our kid, and just, like, leaning into your gut and what you trusting that you know what is right for your kid and what's right for you. And I feel like that's huge. And then also, one of the things that I was reminded of even more so just looking back through my journal and stuff was how I had really learned, I think, through this podcast, through other people mentioning it, was just asking the Lord for specific things. And, like, yes, you ask for, like, a healthy baby and all those things, but for very specific things that you desire, because we know that the Lord wants to give us the desires of our heart. And ultimately, He's going to do what is best for us, and He knows what that is. But He also wants to give us what we desire. And so I, with my second and third, really started leaning into that practice and just asking for some of those things, and wrote down a few of the things. I feel like in this last one, I had so many of those specific answered prayers that just, like, kind of blew my mind. So I'll just share a few of those if that's
please.
cool. But one of the things I prayed for was the Lord's perfect timing in it, because again, it was like, with all the logistics of my mom getting here and the kids being taken care of and all of that. And I feel like we absolutely had that, even with Parker's sickness subsiding and her fever having broken, like, the day that evening when I went into labor, because then she was able to meet him the next morning and we weren't having to, like, keep her
Mhm,
away from the baby. It was
mhm,
just so sweet that we didn't have to push that off. And then I truly just had this sense of peace beyond myself in the waiting and through the whole mind game of the prodromal labor. And that was something I'd prayed over and over for. The fact that my mom was here and got to be here despite her, like, scheduling issues with work and stuff. She was here and able to be around and help us so much. Um, Labor kicking in right after bedtime. Again, that just kind of goes back to that perfect timing. I also had really prayed this time because with Parker's birth, it just kind of happened so quickly. And with getting the tub filled and all of that, it felt a little like rushed and stressful. And so one of the things I had prayed for this time was still a quick labor, but that I would really be able to be present and soak it up, and that there wouldn't be that sense of like rushing in any sense. And we absolutely got that. Maybe to, all even to the extent where I was like, okay, is this going to go anywhere? But like, I truly was able to be so present in so many of the moments that I wanted to be. A short pushing phase was another thing I had prayed for and got, short and intense. I got to catch him, a healthy, perfect baby. Elliot being there at just the right time. Yeah, Parker waking up fever free and no tearing. And one of the things that we had worried about was having enough hot water to like fill the pool with, because our hot water heater had just been kind of struggling the last month or so. And so we had been like, from 38 weeks on, like rationing the hot water. It was like, okay, well, I might go into labor tonight, so the girls do not get a bath tonight because I might not have hot water to fill the tub if they do.
Everyone's showering. You've got 5 minutes.
Yes, I'm taking a cold shower because I'm afraid that I won't have hot water when I want it. So, and we had plenty of hot water, and so that was even just like that little thing. But it goes a long way, and it like just shows the Lord's care for us in the midst of it, and that He, is with us and caring for us and loving us in the midst of all of that. It's so sweet.
Wow. Oh man, Kylie, this is beautiful. And oh goodness, I know I'm gonna be talking about this in the episode roundup, but I love the journaling that you've done so that you can look back and reflect on these things. That's one thing that I've been doing the past 18 plus months and that was through the Lord's prompting of journaling with him and really having these back and forth conversations, and to be able to look back and see like what I was sensing in this time last year is just the coolest, most amazing thing. And it sounds like you have that throughout your pregnancy, all of these journals of your thoughts, what you were praying about, everything that was going on, for you to be able to look back at. That is a huge gift for you. And I think that that's a huge gift for your family too. Like in the future, you guys will be able to sit around and look back together on these things that you documented. That is just, for anyone out there, that's a really neat thing.
Amen. I'm glad you said that too, because that was one of the things that I thought. I'm like, I want to tell people, like, write down your birth story, especially too, like freshly, like
Yes.
within the first week, maybe. Because even so, when I was looking, I did that. And as I was looking back through it to prepare for this, I was like, man, there are so many of these details that in 4 months I have forgotten. And I'm so thankful that I wrote them down while they were fresh. And like, just, it was kind of exhausting to sit there and handwrite it all, but I am so thankful that I did, and will always have that to look back on. And yeah, it is so sweet too to be able to like look back on those things that I was praying for and realize, like, man,
Oh, wow.
the Lord answered that, and I kind of forgot about that, but I get to be reminded of it.
Exactly.
So good.
Oh, Kylie, this has been an absolute honor. Thank you. I have enjoyed talking to you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the Happy Home Birth podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute joy and such an honor.
In this week's episode, we heard from a mother who shared how important connecting with her baby in utero has been to her. Even with her first, she felt the necessity of connecting, and through that, she was able to get a very clear sense of who her baby was, who it was that she was growing. I want to point out that there's no closer you can be to a person than growing inside of them. Growing a baby is the closest you'll ever physically be to anyone. So, why do so many of us get the sense that we can't begin to connect with our baby until they are physically in our arms? I highly recommend my students to use those 9-10 months as the strong foundation for your relationship with your baby. Spend time thinking of them, talking to them, whether out loud or in your mind, praying over them, and envisioning who they are. Remember, labor is two beings working together. How much easier will it be in labor to work with this person when you know them? Science shows that we share so much with our growing babies. Our hormones, the taste of our food, stem cells. My goodness, there is so much connection already. Lean into it and take it further. I promise you will not be disappointed. Now, this is the type of important information that we cover inside of Happy Home Birth Academy and the Home Birth Collective. So if you are ready to take your home birth preparation to the next level and feel completely prepared and informed for the birthing process and postpartum, make sure you check out Happy Home Birth Academy. There is a link in the show notes. And don't forget, if you use the code podcast at checkout, you will get 10% off. And doesn't it feel so beautiful to hear the journey of a mother whose outlook is just so beautiful and positive? I loved hearing Kylie share her experiences. And as we head into today's episode roundup, let's hit on a few topics that came up. First of all, I loved the flexibility. Kylie and Tim allowed to have their minds changed. Before becoming pregnant, Kylie believed that she would most certainly give birth in the hospital with an epidural. But as the reality of pregnancy hit, Kylie was open to the experiences of the friends around her that had positive things to say about giving birth unmedicated. Instead of shutting down, Kylie listened and was open to reconsidering her desires. This is half the battle, my friends, allowing our minds to think, but what if things could be different? Next, it was so special to hear the beautiful way that prayers were answered throughout Kylie's births, but the moment that stands out to me the most happened in her second birth. When Kylie and Tim didn't know what to pray, they just asked the Lord to do what was best in terms of timing. The fact that their oldest daughter was asleep for the birth, but woke up directly after was so beyond what could be considered a coincidence, right? That's not something she did. And yet here she was, awake and able to immediately meet her new little sister in the height of the experience. And finally, on something so lovely that Kylie shared. She mentioned the importance of intuition, listening to your intuition, hearing the Holy Spirit guiding you, and acting in that faith. I just wanted to share how special it is that Kylie journals so much because she has the evidence of this relationship. She has the evidence of her intuition being correct again and again. I cannot tell you how much I have loved keeping a journal this last year to be able to look back on situations and see exactly what I was processing in the moment, to see exactly what I was asking the Lord and how He was answering me, and to be able to look back on those situations and see how the events unfolded, or to see how they resolved or were transformed, or how I was transformed. To have all of these very special, very specific accounts, it's incredible. And that's where the Lord meets me in my journaling. That's where I hear Him guiding me. And I have these records to reflect on and even share with others. I feel like this message is for someone specific listening to this episode. Go get that journal and keep it with you and ask the Lord your questions and see how He answers. What a relationship. We just talked about connection. That's how we can connect with our Father. Okay, my friends, what a beautiful episode. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you back here next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Are you looking to extend the home birth support, encouragement, and education? Join us in our Facebook group, Happy Home Birth Podcast Community, and check us out on Instagram at Happy Home Birth Podcast.